Welcome back! Today we have a massive Stranger Things Season 5 update. The last 3 days have been insane with the teases. From the Byler Wheeler breakfast photo to 11 full throttle flying over this bus. We were also blessed with a ton of cast videos and director interviews, as well as behind the scenes looks at what to expect in Season 5, including the finale. We're going to go over all the biggest releases that you need to know about because they're only going to keep ramping up all the promotional stuff from here. One of my favorite things is this wholesome breakfast shot at the Wheelers' house. You can see Ted unamused by Will and Jonathan's bickering, it looks like, which is surprising because it's usually the Wheeler kids who are fighting. He should be used to this, but this makes us wonder if the Byers will be temporarily living with the Wheelers or close enough as a neighbor where they regularly get together for breakfasts. Because at this point, we have no idea where they'll be staying. We've seen a couple pictures of Hop and Joyce together at his cabin, but there's no way he would have Will and Jonathan stay with him too. And then we get this absolutely sick shot of the actual Demogorgon in the tunnels about to devour Lucas. This is crazy. I can only imagine how he's going to survive this one. I mean, I doubt 11 is here in the tunnels to save him. Dustin might be nearby. Could you imagine if this ended up being Dart? I mean, I don't think it is, but that'd still be funny. Maybe we'll see Lucas try to use his dad's knife from Nam he used to pack on his adventures. Put your theories how he'll survive in the comments. There's also a new shot of Dustin being bullied by Andy and Chance, it looks like, who will be stepping into the human antagonist shoes this season, replacing Jason. These are the jocks that will be physically assaulting Dustin, so you can bet that they'll get some swift justice by the end of this season. We also get a cool shot of Noah and the Duffer Brothers going over the barn scene where he ends up tackling Derek and the Demogorgon 1v1s Joyce with her axe. Boy, do I wish we could zoom and enhance here to see what the script says. There's also a new shot of Hop and Joyce forcing a military scientist to do something, probably unlock something for them or power something on. In one of the interviews, the reporter mentioned 11 will be going through a door after this scene. There's a lot of interesting things we really need to talk about, so make sure you're subscribed because I have a feeling you're not going to want to miss out on the next breakdowns. So first up, we're going to go over the time interview. The reporter actually got to visit set halfway through filming for the downtown scene in the military compound and reported around 100 military soldiers were on set, which is crazy. Not to mention a ton of fake bloodied corpses, which we can see in all of these trailer shots. They said there were stuntmen waiting to be thrown into the air by people in gray bodysuits covered with orange ping pong balls. Literally these Demogorgon stand-ins wearing the mocap fits. This is for the finale of Volume 1 at the end of The Sorcerer when Vecna will first return to Hawkins. And apparently, the Duffers said that this isn't even the biggest scene they've shot this year. Sean Levy said the production for these sets were as big as the Marvel ones he's worked on, which is great to hear. I really want to see an in-depth behind-the-scenes documentary after this season. They also reported seeing them shoot another oneer, which is just a long, usually complicated, continuous take, just like the one they shot in Season 4 with the Byers' California house shootout, but this one for Season 5 is reportedly a fake one stitched together with a bunch of smaller shots, versus a true oneer which they had in Season 4, which is just one long take. Apparently, they were near the Radio Shack downtown that Bob used to work at while shooting this, and in the oneer, Mike will be herding a group of children away from danger. Most likely all the ones we see in this bunker, and he's trying to keep them safe during the Demogorgon outbreak. And it could possibly lead into this one shot that they've been showing us. The visual effects supervisor said that by the end of this oneer, just about everybody you see standing is going to be dead except for the kids, which is music to my ears. It sounds like we are finally going to get a full-scale Demogorgon massacre. Like the Gulag fight in Season 4, they were just testing the waters with what they thought they could do visually on a small scale, and now they're confident enough where they can do this on a much larger scale. This is going to be awesome. Matt Duffer said that the show is the most profitable ever, bringing in 2 million new subscribers to Netflix, equating to $1 billion in revenue since 2020 alone, which puts pressure on them for each season to be better than the last to justify scaling up the show each season. They also said that they want to keep building the Stranger Things universe with Netflix after Season 5, but how expensive and expansive it will be depends on how this Season 5 finale is received, almost as if that will start the sparks that become the next spin-off shows. Or maybe they're just worried about fans hating the ending and losing interest in the future of the franchise. I know it's a possibility, but I feel like that would be really hard to do. The reporter returned a year later to the editing bay, and the only spoiler-free scene the Duffers could find to show them was a comical one between Lucas and Robin trying to push an elevator button in the hospital. Lucas is there to visit Max, and they confirmed she will remain in a coma until midway through Season 5, which is kind of what we were expecting. They also mentioned that Max will be included in the plan to fight the villain, and when asked, Sadie Sink said the Duffers wouldn't have kept her around if they didn't have a purpose for her, meaning that the Duffers knew they needed someone to be in a coma, in Vecna's mind, to help defeat him in Season 5, and that's why they didn't kill Max in Season 4's finale. They also report that at the beginning of Season 5, Vecna has disappeared and the gang must hunt him down while avoiding the military, which have imposed the quarantine to cover up the portal Vecna opened in the library. And then apparently the reporter was on a tunnel set in Atlanta and tripped over Barb's body covered in vines and showing upside down overgrowth with a giant bleeding gash on her neck. All the while she's half buried in the ground. It's funny that she's the one dead character that has appeared in every single season of the show. It seems only fitting to bring her back for Season 5. The reporter also watched what appeared to be a hallucination scene they filmed where Holly Wheeler wanders through an orange rock labyrinth in a 50s era blue A-line dress similar to Alice in Wonderland's, but with blood smeared across her forehead. The president of the Duffers Upside Down Pictures started telling the reporter how the scene connects to Stranger Things, immediately referencing the first Shadow stage play, telling the reporter that Holly's dress has important significance. And then soon after, they visited an old-fashioned room with an Alice in Wonderland picture hanging on the wall, which Ross actually posted to Instagram a while ago. There was also a Raggedy Ann doll with a missing eye and a demonic-looking stuffed bunny. And then the president went on to tell them more before Matt Duffer had to ask them to stop to not spoil the show, which is kind of funny. We almost got way bigger of a scoop than we were supposed to, but this room was most likely Alice Creel's bedroom, Henry's little sister. I mean, it's possible it was also Patty Newby's room, Bob Newby's sister from the first Shadow stage play, but we need to sit down and talk about that in its own very long video. Now, the production designer mentioned that the gang will be using the radio station as their base to rebel against the military. This is where they prep their hijinks, he says. And the Duffers mention that specifically, the booby traps from Home Alone are a key inspiration for this season, which is awesome. The traps are the best part of that movie. I'm so thrilled we're going to get something similar in Season 5, most likely to combat all the Demogorgons. Remember the Turnbow trap? I think they're literally using Derek as bait to help defeat this Demogorgon. The costume designer mentioned that Dr. K is leading these new mercenaries that are known as the Wolf Pack, and this squad is led by Alex Bro that we see running all over Hawkins, and she mentions that their goal is simply to find 11. The reporter also returned to the downtown set at night for the battle scene in The Sorcerer, and the Duffers mentioned they're experimenting with a new type of shot called Demovision. This is where they use a drone to capture fight scenes from the perspective of a Demogorgon, which will be completely new and very interesting to see since Demogorgons don't have any eyeballs. The couple times we've seen things from a Demogorgon's perspective, or maybe it was the meat puppet from Season 3, it seemed like we were in its mouth, so I really wonder how they're going to pull this off and what it will look like. Finn Wolfhard, who plays Mike, said he had to run up a hill, I'm assuming away from this Demogorgon in the Demovision shot, like 10 times, and he actually had to use a trainer to help get him in shape for all the longer action scenes this season. They also ended up finding out that it was Netflix executives who proposed stretching the episode's release even further into 3 separate parts to avoid spoilers for the finale. But I can't help but think that stretching it closer to January will almost guarantee an extra month of membership payments for all those viewers who will only be using Netflix during Stranger Things release. But who knows? And then they do talk about the possible 15-year later sequel show starring all the original actors, with Gayton saying he would love to jump on that opportunity in a heartbeat. And I'm sure just about everybody would love that, so try to just forget about this idea for the next 15 years and cross your fingers. Now, next is the article from Variety. The reporter was on set during the episode 4 Sorcerer scene as well, with Eleven and Hop in the military lab. They watched them film a scene with a big explosion, and then Eleven falls to the floor struggling with blood coming from her nose, most likely this exact scene from the trailers. She cries out in pain, and then someone comes in the door and she gets up. They mention that Eleven is at the precipice of a game-changing revelation. No idea what this will be, but they describe it later in the article as Eleven's big discovery. possibly who her real father is, or where Henry Creel originally got his powers. Maybe where Vecna has been hiding all this time, or maybe she discovers a new power that she has. I mean, I don't think that 11 knows that she gets her powers from Henry's blood. It could be that, but I think it's something the audience doesn't know yet either. I mean, it was kind of alluded to in the first shadow, so maybe that's a big reveal, but I kind of feel like it was implied in season 4 that Henry was used to create all the other children's powers. And then apparently, 11 is about to pass through a mysterious door here, they say. The Duffers mentioned that they did every last thing they wanted to do in this season, with Demogorgons, the Mind Flayer, Vecna, the Upside Down, Hawkins, and all the characters. They say they feel very confident with how they completed all the loose ends. But I can't help but feel like some of the loose ends from earlier in the show, like how Brenner survived the Demogorgon or what happened to Callie, might go unfinished. They also really wanted to put the finale episode in theaters, especially right after the K-pop Demon Hunter sing-along success, and Netflix flat out said no. They said that the people, us the fans, want it to be released on Netflix. And while they should still release it on Netflix, they should 100% put it in theaters as well, so if you choose to, you can go celebrate with all the other fans and make an event out of it to celebrate the long decade this show has run on for. The Duffers have always wanted it in theaters so people could appreciate the sound better and appreciate the theater experience. At the very least, put it in theaters for one weekend, just a little bit after its release, so people can go back and re-watch it. I don't get why they wouldn't do it. It seems like a no-brainer. Season 5 will start with a 18-month time jump since Season 4's finale. The finale of Season 5 will be around 2 hours long. The other runtimes were just revealed as well, all about an hour in length, which is exactly what we were saying a couple months ago. The Duffer Brothers told us a very long time ago they were going to aim for a 10-hour-long season. And with Volume 1's episode length average and a 2-hour finale, it literally equals 10 hours almost perfectly. They acknowledged that they needed to answer one of the biggest questions of the show, which is, what is the Upside Down? Well, this season they said we're finally going to talk about it. Thank goodness. The reporter also said that the Sorcerer shoot had a small army of stunt performers, and they were watching this scene that Ross posted to Instagram, which most likely is the Demogorgon outbreak that leads into Vecna's return and this massive fireball attack. The reporter mentioned that there was performers on stilts on this set. I mean, possibly short stilts to make the actors closer to 8 to 10 feet tall for a standing Demogorgon. Noah Schnapp was there prepping for an emotional scene as well. I feel like the hype around episode 4 is very real. I cannot wait to watch this episode. And apparently, halfway into reading episode 8, The Right Side Up, the finale, is when everyone started to cry, which is probably around the end of the finale battle just before the epilogue starts for the last 30 to 40 minutes of the episode. Which that alone is pretty emotional, even for the Duffers to just edit, which they said they just finished. It sounds like this will be the ending of season 3 with all the kids crying, but times 100, with everyone trying not to bawl their eyes out the entire time. I'm telling you, get your tissues ready now, people. And then the last interview is with Empire, and this reporter says that Eleven's powers will be taken to another level for her final fight against Vecna. She's been training since season 4. Ross Duffer said that she's not like Superman, but she's stronger than she was. I think meaning that she isn't invincible and can't traditionally fly. It almost seems like this will be a push upwards from her powers, but I mean, we already have seen her levitate before and they never revisited that, so you never know. And then Matt describes her as moving away from her Padawan status and becoming stronger. He says she has a better control over her powers and can use them in more innovative ways, which is really interesting. I feel like her leaping over the bus here is just the start of this. Also, there's little Hopper and Joyce watching her in the background. This is very cute. We saw a BTS shot of this. But he says that the closest example of her powers is the Force. Not only is it similar to all the other things she's done so far, the pushes, I mean, that's a given. The grabs, that too is one for one. The repulses, these are honestly some of my favorite. And now the jumps, which I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. But I wonder what other powers she might acquire. A common one is a Jedi mind trick, where the user convinces a weaker-minded individual to think a certain way to get them to do something for you. This would definitely be useful to sneak into restricted areas unnoticed, but I don't know if it fits the show's theming. There's also Force Healing, which was just recently introduced, but it was met with quite a lot of backlash as it usually undoes a fatal main character wound and undermines an emotional death moment, so I really hope they don't make the same mistake or do it where it feels cheap. There's also the very rare force speed, where the user is able to move extremely fast, almost slowing down time around them for a short moment. Although this might be interesting to see in Stranger Things, I'm not so sure it would be grounded or fair enough to see Eleven use this in battle. I do really like the comparison though between the Force and Eleven's powers. The Duffers say that they answered most questions and resolved every arc with this definitive ending. They say to expect bigger, bolder, and stranger things this season, which is a very interesting thing to say, as if they will be introducing new unfamiliar elements with this season beyond Eleven's new powers. Maybe they're referencing the elements from Henry's past in the first Shadow play. They say that episode 4 and 8 are just monsters, which could be them saying that the amount of monsters in each is so high that's all they are, but most likely they're just referring to how grand the two finales are in terms of story and scale. I don't know about you, but this is about the best possible update I could hope for as we inch closer to the final season. Tell me what you're most excited for, and I will see you in another video very soon. Peace.